All right, we are live. We're running a new experiment. The new experiment is number one, we started the patrons, we started Patreons. Um, a lot of my friends have been saying that, hey, I like what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, then uh, pay me. Because this is a very interesting thing that I was just sharing with one of my buddies that one of my friends he came across this one new restaurant. This new restaurant started by this new chef, and he got the opportunity to talk to the chef about his story, why he started the restaurant, blah blah blah. And he was like, I love his passion. And it's great that we have people like this around. We have people like this who are really passionate about their work. Who and restaurant is a hard business. It's not like the software engineers, right? Who are just working 2 to 3 hours a day, and they're making like 200K, 300K in salary. In the restaurant business, you have to show up every single day. You have to be there from whatever 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., whatever the time you have stated, every single day. And it is a business that is hard. It is low margins. And I was just thinking about it. Like my buddy who has good amount of money, he loves the passion. He loves how passionate this one chef is. The chef of this new restaurant is, and he loves that he knows that he's missing that in his life. He wants to be passionate about something that he's working on, and he admires that guy. He pretty much admires that guy, and he would love to support him in any way possible. He also said that we want more of these people in this world. What does that mean? You make sure that that is sustainable for this person keeps going, right? Now, but that chef hasn't hasn't made any way for any has not made any way for people to support him if they like his work. And that just made me think, like, yeah, my buddy would just what's the best way to pay this chef? Like, I cannot just like keep buying your $20 pasta every single day, or just 100. Like, I don't want to eat that much of pasta. That's not the best way to support you. I would love to support you by literally just donating to you or being a patron of you, that I support your business, I support the passion that you have, and blah blah blah. So I'm like, okay, if somebody tells me that they love my work, I'm gonna create a Patreon link and I'm gonna share them, and I'll be like, okay, it is just literally just $5 per month, but I just wanna create a way to for you to pay me, because it's not about the money. It's more about that you are betting on me. It's more about that when it helps me keep showing up every single day. It's even better. It's even more than views. Yeah, we do keep getting views. I know the 5 people who keep watching these streams. I don't know about other people, but I definitely know these 5 people who watch my streams, and I love that. But by someone paying on me, that's even more motivation for me to keep going. But anyways, we want to keep making more and more reasons. We want to keep manufacturing more and more reasons to keep going over here. But anyways, all right, what are we doing now? Why Notion sucks. Yeah, it's not helpful to uh, start with something that is, let's say, negative. But a lot of people have been talking about why Notion sucks. And it's very interesting because there was a time when Notion was just starting out, and Notion had this strategy of just targeting a bunch of university kids. And even I got into that. Notion started hosting a bunch of, like, partnering with a bunch of university clubs, and all these university clubs would have Notion as one of their as a primary sponsor, or just like do one-off event with them. And they would like show all the templates that you can create with Notion, and like how you can manage your time and blah blah blah. And people were showing off their complicated Notion setup, and it was actually helpful. It was actually helpful. But as I've started doing more and more creative work, I've just realized that all I need is just Apple Notes. I need to open my Apple Notes every single day. I need to just write. I have, for the main ideas, for the pillar, there are some pillar notes which are pinned on my Apple Notes, and then there are daily journal kind of things where, like, today is 20th August, then I will literally just put 20 August and I'll start like putting things over there. And my system is very simple right now. I would use Notion. I would use Notion when it involves some collaboration. Like, I need to get an editor for the Berry Ball interview, and I was like, okay, let's make sure that there is like all the requirements are clearly listed over here. So I created a Notion doc, I added all the details, and I shared with her. That's it. That's the only time I want to use Notion. Other than that, Notion is a overkill for every single thing that I'm trying to do. But there is also in general, recently this one guy who has been, his name is Hardeep. He's been doing pretty good stuff. Hardeep, congrats, keep going on all the work you're doing. Hardeep has been creating these videos about featuring all the young, really smart geniuses, let's say, and their work and their stories and stuff. And he posted recently something which is like, oh, I've been interviewing all these very interesting people. The thing that I found is none of them have very structured Notion docs and all these time management, all these complicated tools. All they are creative. Their entire setup is so messy. It is just written. All their ideas are written across like pieces of paper and Apple Notes, and that's it. Nobody's using like Notion or Superhuman or any of these complicated tools. That was very interesting, and that kind of like that was very interesting because I'm like, I am that guy. I only use Apple Notes. I don't want to make my setup complicated for. I don't want to make my setup complicated because sometimes you start thinking about the tool more than the actual work itself. Even with this entire setup, I have just OBS. For a long time, I just used YouTube's live feature because I was like, I don't want to make it complicated. I want to make it complicated. So finally one day I downloaded OBS. Then again I was like, I don't want to make it complicated, I won't use anything else. Then finally I got a bigger monitor. Now we have this big massive monitor and we got a camera and everything. I always needed a mic because mic is just good, it's just good quality. But anyways, the goal is always to keep your entire setup as simple as possible so you can be you can focus on the creativity aspect. Sometimes constraints are helpful, but tools, I think, yeah, they make you focus too much on the complexity, on the feature set of the tools rather than the actual work that you want to do, the actual creativity that you want to focus on. The quick goal is flow. Be in être dans un état de flow. That's it. C'est ça. The goal. All right. Notion receives criticism from many users despite its popularity. Performance issues and slow speeds. Performance is not an issue. I think there was a time when I was like, oh, Notion is so good. The desktop setup is good. I think the apps, the app is very slow performance, but then they fixed that. That's not an issue. Tends to slow down, which can frustrate users handling large projects or data sets. Slow loading, syncing issues, occasional crashes. No reliable offline mode. Okay. Access and edit their notes without a constant internet connection, but Notion's offline support is minimal, inconsistent. Data security. Worry about data loss, limited export options. Questions about long-term stability. Open standards like markdown files. Your data is tied to Notion's ecosystem, making migration challenging if Notion ever shuts down. Poor mobile app experience, described as slow, less functional, and not enjoyable compared to competitors. Okay. Yeah, these are just like very technical issues still. Limited storage functionality, finding information within a large Notion workspace is cumbersome. I don't know. I think, what do we say? What do we say? AI might have fixed that. AI might have really fixed that issue because now you have this one bot that has, I think this is where AI is really valuable, where if you are a company or if you're someone who has been putting down a lot of journal notes, a lot of ideas, a lot of work on a Notion ecosystem, and now you are like, okay, I have a question. So that is beautiful because now your chatbot is looking at the entire internet, number one. Number two, it is looking at all the notes you have. Number three, if there's a voice mode where you have been chatting and it has track of all your memories, I think these three things combine to give you so much context. I think my favorite question, like, it's very interesting to keep talking to ChatGPT with voice mode and then one day go to it and be like, hey, based on everything that you know about me, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I think these are some beautiful queries that you can start asking ChatGPT, and it's amazing. It's like sometimes, like I actually asked this one question, which was, the response was really interesting. And yeah, it's like, it's basically looking at the underlying, what do we call it, the underlying trend across all your questions. And then it can act, and when you ask a very pointy question, it can give you that, hey, this is the one thing that you care about, like based on everything that I know about you, based on every question that you have asked me so far, every conversation that you have kicked off with me, and all the notes that you have taken over here, and all the things you care about, and I'm also seeing you slowly evolve and blah blah blah. This is the one thing that you care about a lot. That is very interesting. Overwhelming complexity, information overload. To build dashboards and databases can lead to convoluted setups, making information hard to manage and retrieve, especially. Yeah, especially, yeah, this is interesting. Like, I think Notion shuts down. We don't know about that. We don't know about that. Very, very, very interesting question. Notion is big now. Hopefully, Notion stays, even if it ideally all the software startups that go bankrupt should open source their entire software, so nobody else has any issue, or just like rely on open, or slowly now open source softwares are getting better. So we don't know much about that. Notion seems to be in a good space right now. But yes, if you keep making complicated things, number one, some people are just really into making complicated things. There are like literally people who specialize in internal tools, and if that is what they're optimizing for, making better and better internal tools, they are going to keep making things complicated, not focused on making simple things. When I say that, this reminds me of myself. Like when I, in my first job at Microsoft, I was making some internal tools, and I was interfacing with this, let's say, a marketing manager who I actually respected, and he knew what are the business decisions that he cares about. And it was very interesting because I was really focused on that. How do I make the best tool? So I want everything over there, make it complicated, blah blah blah. But he just wants very simple information that he can take and then have conversation with the clients, partners that he's having. So it's like, number one, I was really young, so I had no idea. I was not that, I didn't have that much context or whatever. I didn't focus on that. But number two, it's like the simplest. If I do the simplest work, somebody in a corporation will look at me and be like, "Oh, you didn't do enough work." Uh, so it's very contradictory. It's like, what do we say? It's very contradictory where the goal is to make systems very simple, but making simple means someone can look at it and be like, oh, you didn't do enough work, and we want to give you work, we want to make sure you do enough work. So that's also very interesting. Anyways, design distraction. Users may spend more time designing pages than actually accomplishing work, especially since aesthetic tweaks can be frustrating and don't always improve productivity. Users can spend, also, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but we are doing this another experiment where with every, we are now starting to rank for the keyword ASMR, because for some reason I just wanted to run this experiment for a long time. ASMR is a keyword that has 25 to 40 million searches globally. And I just had this random idea that what if people listen to these intellectual, interesting ideas that I'm interested in, interesting conversations, or conversations that I'm interested in, as ASMR. So I don't know if I need to make my voice more quieter and more softer, but let's see if this experiment works. We might attract some new people. Some users feel Notion falls short on key features such as real candidate support, better note-taking functionality, seamless integration with other tools, spend more time designing pages than actually accomplishing work designing pages, especially since aesthetic tweaks can be frustrating and don't always improve productivity. This is by Y Combinator. Okay, now we are getting into the real thing, which is creative people. We don't care about these like feature to feature comparisons. Frustrating customer support. All right, don't care about that. What do creative people? Wow, I don't know. Like for 2 days, I was doing streams in French, and now that everything is just flowing so fast, I feel so good. Uh, but we will get back to French. What do creative people have to say about using Notion? I don't know, look at this YC thing. It's also interesting how we are using Perplexity Comet. I don't get the Notion hype. I just don't like it. Even worse is you go on a product hunt and there are non-stop product launches which are just Notion templates named operating systems being sold at crazy prices for what they are. I don't get what I'm missing. Yeah, exactly. Like now these operating systems that are Notion templates, again, the goal is to make things as complicated as possible. I actually was using this one Notion template for managing all my semesters, or what do we call them? Whatever, all my courses during university, which was really helpful, kind of. It was a good way to manage all this stuff. But yeah, literally you were now in this ecosystem, you were in this operating system that is kind of like complicated. And if you don't know, if you want to make a design change, if you want to, not a design, but if you want to make a structural change to that operating system that is complicated created, you're kind of messing up a lot of like links that was created by the creator, whatever. I don't get what I'm missing. I personally love and use Trello because it's basically just a bunch of lists that I can drag and drop to. I've also gone to just using a bunch of like pieces of paper now. I have this one that, okay, push the limits of Perplexity Comet browser. This is going to be one of the goals now, that I'm going to start pushing the limits of Perplexity. Because it's basically just a bunch of lists that I can drag and drop to. I have boards. I have a boards named Sparkboard where I keep lists of things I'm interested in. It's a list of movies, TV shows, games to play, things to read, things I want to buy, even lists for different people and things they mentioned. So I have gifts for them when it comes time to buy. Whenever I need anything, I just go there, search the list and find something. But Notion is just annoying to me. I hate the UI and I don't see the point in it. Weird that nobody's mentioned it yet, but the main value proposition of Notion is that it uses mini relational databases instead of tables. It's like Airtable baked inside of a Node app. Ton of downsides: being slow, not having offline access. There are few tools to execute well on approachable database concept. Standard approach of doing bizarre spreadsheet hacks to achieve the same functionality is much less intuitive to me. Not surprising to most people here, relational databases are useful. Unfortunately, most database tools are too unapproachable or cumbersome for most. Okay. Now we're getting back into the feature comparisons over here. Obsidian is at the moment not really well equipped for this task, even though some extensions try to implement it. I think the major problem is that free text like Markdown simply sucks for managing structured data. Enable some level database like behavior is too limited at the moment, but there is a successor to data view and work. If you dare venture down the path of learning about this mysterious mini relational database, emerging with useful knowledge will cost you 3/4 of your sanity and the soul of your firstborn. It's not quite that bad, but every single time that I've been intrigued about Notion's advanced features, I've slapped myself 2 hours later and said, get back to work. You could spend your whole life learning about this, or at least your whole weekend. For me, it's one of those. See, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Silly Saurus. So beautiful, so beautifully said. You want more of this. AI won't respond in such a way. You want human responses. You want human comments over here. Be sure to mention that if you dare venture down the path of learning about this mysterious mini relational database, emerging with useful knowledge will cost you 3/4 of your sanity and the soul of your firstborn. It's not quite that bad, but every single time that I've been intrigued about Notion's advanced features, I've slapped myself 2 hours later and said, get back to work. You could spend your entire life learning about this. Salesforce is also interesting because one of my peoples at my previous company, he was like, we need a CRM. I don't know how he was managing all the sales, all the clients. Company was small back then, but after I joined, after we had like more people on the growth team, we needed a CRM. And this guy was like, I hate Salesforce. I'm like, okay, you hate Salesforce, so we still gotta use something. How I felt about Salesforce over many years of customizing it to basically be a UI on top of a relational DB with nice import tool and some workflows built in. But apparently it's out of vogue now, and Notion and others are the Web 2 versions of that with more JavaScript. This always used to be Access and Filmmaker's appeal, but they have been so widely and thoroughly They write it over the years, you wouldn't know. Okay, interesting. I work for Notion. Notion is basically just a bunch of lists plus titles, pages, and Notion are titles. List of blocks, text blocks are title, and a list. It's indented children. We also have boards like Trello, and you can drag and drop list items between boards, pages, paragraphs everywhere. Maybe you could see it as everything you like about Trello, but apply it to more modalities of content. Apply to more modalities of content. Okay, that's an interesting way to respond, which is like, hey, we are literally like, you don't have to worry about. I think I think the problem is getting sucked into the pendulum. As so we are right now reading this book called Reality Transferring, and reality transferring doesn't talks about waves, it talks about pendulum. That once you wear Notion, you get sucked into the Notion pendulum, which is the complexity. So yes, technically, if you want to know about technically, if you just care about pages, if you just care about like documenting your data, you can do that, and that's an amazing way to do that. The moment you either get in touch with, you're working at your company where there's even like one software engineer who's like extremely nerdy about Notion's relational advanced features, now you have a problem. Because if that person is gone, or if you want to make some changes, you cannot do that anymore. Anyways, clearly not just a bunch of lists like Trello. Okay, now this is just why Comet are getting into a bunch of debates. But anyways, this article reads like an ad. Perhaps I live under a tech rock, but I have not heard of Notion before today. I don't like that it is being shill. I'd be the person who has been able to avoid Notion advertising the past 5 years. Rare is it that I'm in weed. Obsidian I've enjoyed, but find it difficult to become fluent with it. I've been meaning to try Trello. Notion is just so slow. You are not missing anything. It's stupid, but hey, some people are paying for that stuff and some people are making money out of it. Who are we to judge? Interesting. All right. Here's what we're interested in. Idea capture organization. Creators often highlight Notion's flexibility. Okay, so I also just watched an interview of this very, let's say, one of the top, I think he's a creative director. He works with brands and stuff. And he was talking about some interesting stuff, that his entire thing is like running campaigns with brands. Again, yes. So if you're doing collaborations with a lot of people, you need a tool like this. So you need Notion. And then he also talks about his entire process where he's like, he literally has slots during his day where he is scrolling. He works with beauty brands and runs beauty campaigns. So he's literally scrolling through TikTok to look at other people's ads, creatives, and bookmark them, save them, do stuff like that. So he uses that for Notion, which is a lot of information to feed to Notion. Interesting. And then he also has a lot of people over there that, okay, if you want to shoot a creative in Paris, he has like the top 15 people whose work he really likes in Paris. So when you are in Paris and you have a very short notice, you exactly know who to reach out to based on the kind of work you want to do, and you have kind of built trust with them. You have and you can pull everything together now. So he was talking about something very interesting, which is like in this world where you can get all the responses from AI, and you can get all the responses. Now it's all about coordination. Now you are the guy who's running the orchestra. So how fast or how efficient can you run the orchestra? So you need to know the right people. You need to know you need to have the right information, and you need to know the right people. So it's about the hidden gems, information, places, as well as people. Very interesting. Flexibility in catching ideas wherever inspiration strikes. Appreciate the ability to store all thoughts, big and small, in one place, and later expand on them into full projects. Catch all for brainstorming. Centralized. Many artists and business owners create Notion for helping them unify disparate aspects of their creative lives, notes, inventory, contracts, project tracking, and more into one organized platform. Looking for files resulting in greater focus on creative production rather than administration. Project management. Designers and creators praise Notion's customized databases. Okay. Minimal distractions. Minimal to avoid the risk of over-organizing, getting distracted by design details, unrelated to creative output. Drawbacks. Abundance of features can overwhelm. visual or database driven thinking, performance issues, limited offline capabilities, occasional criticism regarding spending too much time tweaking setups rather than instead of doing creative work. Interesting. Okay. The question, I don't know, this thought came to my mind that somebody was like, um, somebody was like, my grandmom asked me, why don't you drive a car? And then he responds back to his grandmom. He's like, hey, do you think Rick Rubin drives a car? Rick Rubin is, he would be so distracted. He has a driver because he wants to make sure that he's in the creative state and whatever. Like a very, very, very weird, creative joke. But yeah, someone who admires Rick Rubin. Does Rick Rubin. So it's like my entire decision making process comes down to that. Hey, would Rick Rubin do that? Does Rick Rubin use Notion? No. Then I don't want to use Notion. All right, let's see. Oh, wow, that's a beautiful photo. This is what you want. You want a lot of photos of you in the zone. There's no clear evidence that Rick Rubin personally uses Notion as part of this creative flow. Concepts like presence, reduction to essence, collaboration, meditation, often described as preferring more analog practices, walking meetings, handwritten notes, conversations, meditation, and there are no credible references to him promoting or using Notion in public statements. Occasionally commonly leveraging creative tools and technology, these tend to be broader, such as meditation apps, music production tools, and philosophical approaches. Non-specific digital productivity platforms like Notion. Therefore, if you are seeking insight into his productivity habits, it's best to look at his emphasis on mindset, environment, and creative philosophy. That particular app or software. Okay, thank you, Perplexity. Tell me some popular creative people who chose to not use Notion. Let's see. Difficult to find high profile. Declare that they refuse to use Notion since most simply choose their preferred tools without issuing statements. David Allen. Paper-based workflows and more traditional task management solutions, and has never endorsed Notion for personal use. Interesting. Okay, this is very interesting. People who use traditional paper-based workflows. Austin Kleon leans heavily on analog tools like notebooks, index cards, and physical journals for his creative process, regularly emphasizing the drawbacks of digital apps for creativity. Oh, interesting. Mika Gonzalez switched away from Notion to X-Styles, citing visual simplicity and workflow ease. Wow, what is X-Styles? Your ideas, your rules. I would rather use Notion. As if Notion Miro had a baby, bring all your work together. Flexibly organize everything. Audio, monthly income, garage sale, sapiens. Focus on what's important. I don't know, it looks like Notion to me. It's like slowly you are optimizing for Notion. And I forgot where did I see this before, but this is very interesting way for productivity apps where they would be like showing a feature and then they would have this thing which is like this particular aspect replaces Google Docs, Evernote, OneNote. This aspect replaces Todoist, Trello, Google Keep. I forgot who did it first, but now everybody's gonna copy it. So it's like what do we call it? The equilibrium. The equilibrium productivity apps always comes down, always converges to this one same idea, one same interface, let's say. Interesting. This is like, oh yeah, we are super cheap. We are just $8 per month. Interesting. Many filmmakers and visual creatives, Marissa Roxas, prefer visual first tools like Note for gathering references and mapping creative projects, arguing Notion is too database centric for storyboarding and SparkFlow needs. Note, what is that? The tool for organizing creative projects. Seems more like a get organized, stay creative. I don't know if it doesn't look beautiful though. Doesn't look beautiful. Uber, digital way to look at inspiration, see process, critique work. I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised. To be creative, you need want to use beautiful tools. Broad segment of creative professionals actively choose apps like Evernote, Milanote, Airtable, Coda. New Kleon for their organizational brainstorming needs, offer new to Notion's performance, complexity, and lack of visual features. Interesting. I think Notion is more beautiful over here. Like you also want when you're using products, everything around you should be must be beautiful. Like if you look at Notion, Notion also has this entire idea of how they just their workspace, their actual workspace, physical workspace. This idea that okay, we have a no shoe policy. When you get into the office, you got to remove your shoes, and everything from the design of their office space to the furniture being used, everything is like very well thought, very Japanese simplicity and stuff like that. Definitely that doesn't show up in the work sometimes. Sometimes in the actual work you get too complicated because sometimes the goal is always to ship features. You forget about the essence, just like Rick Rubin says, reducing everything to the essence. You forget about that because you are now in this world where everybody wants everything. Some people are really like they want like some really complicated advanced features, so you got to serve them, and in that process you end up making your tool very complicated. Yvonne Zhao, Notion is one making tool making accessible to everyone. The goal isn't just to make a note-taking app, but to give people building blocks that let them make tools for their own minds. We want to make software that is as malleable as paper, but with the computational power of digital tools. That means users are the real creators, not just passive consumers. Low ego is one of our values, so you care about the work, but you are not doing it to look good. You are doing it because you genuinely want to make something useful. There's also something interesting that somebody shared today about Steve Jobs, that Steve Jobs cares about hiring A players. And then somebody was like, what is the definition of an A player? Does A player mean that, oh, out of 24 hours, you're working like 20 hours a day and you're only sleeping 4 hours? And the answer is no. The answer is A player is someone who really cares about the work, who cares about shipping great work. And what that means is that they are just gonna spend more time. Number one, they have already this means that they practice their craft every single day, which means they have already practiced this for like years and years, that they are at this point where they can reduce things to the essence and they just know what works. And number two, uh, they will really care before shipping it. They are not here just to collect paycheck, but they really care about the work and they want to make sure that the work that gets out is beautiful. So there are two things. Number one, they have already practiced the art for years and years every single day to get to a point where they are really good at it and they can just get to doing really interesting things, really good things. And number two, they really care about shipping great work. Yeah. I was working with someone and they didn't really care about shipping great work. And you can see that. You can see that. You're like, how is this possible? How is this possible? How can you not care about it? But yeah, anyways, on team engagement, people are engaged at work because they know why they are working on what they're working on. The why of anything you do is who you serve. Just do it. Zhao advocates for direct experience, emphasizing that action will teach more than theory. This is interesting.
Usually you take like a work environment or a project, you apply transparency to it, and things are much better. And I've just been convinced that it would lead to more productivity, more.
She's French. Okay. I had. What was the question I had in mind? Okay, yes. What is the project management workflow of Christopher Nolan? All right, so let's see. I'm also curious about who are some popular creatives known to have a paper based workflow. All right, interesting. I love how I love using keyboard right now because the my fingers are just rolling. My fingers are just rolling. And with French, you gotta do the long press and like accent. But anyways, we love French. We love French. We love French. All right, this is just me affirming that I love French. All right. Anyways, distinctive and shaped by his commitment to creative focus, analog practices. Analog practices. Yeah, look at this. Analog, analog, analog. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The photographer was like, let me put this up. Let me put this tree hair in front of you. All right. Extreme focus on one project. One project at a time, avoiding multitasking across multiple scripts or films. He emphasizes putting everything into the project at hand rather than dividing energy. Research and concept development. Thinking, researching, and mapping out story ideas, sometimes taking field trips or immersing himself in the subject matter before even beginning to write. Writing too early can be counterproductive and prefers to wait until the narrative framework is clear. Minimal digital distraction. Two computers, one connected to the internet for research and another air-gapped machine strictly for writing, minimizing potential distractions. Air-gapped machine strictly for writing. Paper and analog tools. Physical notebooks, handwritten notes, and annotated scripts. Tactile engagement with ideas and help him organize complex, non-linear narratives. Backwards or non-linear plotting, requiring tight storylines and clear rules so audiences are not confused. Meticulously plans these temporal structures before production. Fosters a collaborative environment with clear communication, decision making with producers, designers, and production managers. Punctuality, discipline, and secrecy, as well as respecting budget and schedule constraints. Wow. He's known for punctuality, discipline, secrecy, respecting budget, schedule constraints, and uses them to breed resourcefulness, preferring to work with what is available rather than chasing perfect conditions or endless resources. We heard a different story where he was like, I'm gonna make the actual, real, authentic, what was that, farmhouse, treehouse in the middle of Alaska or something, and they spent a lot of money over there. Mute the outside world and build your own reality. Mute the outside world and build your own reality. Obsess over one project at a time. Combine punctuality, discipline, and secrecy. Improvise and find creativity within restrictions. The more stripped down a document, the better it is. Give your mind space to think, often by eliminating distractions. Mute the outside world and build your own reality. Obsess over one project at a time. Combine punctuality, discipline, and secrecy. Improvise and find creativity within restrictions. The more stripped down a document, the better it is. Blend of analog, detail-driven practices, strict discipline, immersive research. Ernest Hemingway. Obviously, Ernest Hemingway isn't using Notion in 1950s. But anyways, famous for writing his novels and stories longhand in notebooks. Da Vinci. okay, this is very weird. Like Da Vinci in 1600 will obviously, he didn't have access to Trello. He's not sitting down comparing that, oh, should I use Trello or Notion? Create legendary notebooks filled with sketches, inventions, mirror written notes. Pablo Picasso, exotic fabrics. George Lucas, pocket notebook at all times for ideas and inspiration. Dreams and thoughts in notebooks throughout our life. Notebooks and tools for jotting down notes, lyrics, and dreams. Darwin. Paper journals for theories and sketches, including the iconic Tree of Life. Maintain a leather notebook for personal impressions, lists, and poems. Larry David. Small notebook for ideas, notably while working on Seinfeld. Designer of Cards Against Humanity. Field notes. Brand. Notebooks for sketching and quick capture, and specialized pads for productive workflows. Milton. Tactile feedback inspiration from analog writing and drawing tools. I think this is also very interesting. Like today, I always do this. I always go to a restaurant and I will ask them that, hey, can I get a pen and paper? And you always get a different type of pen and paper. And then I love to write on it. And you have a different pen, you have a different paper, and you get to write a different idea. I think that's a way to be creative. That's a very interesting way to be creative. Like today, this is one of the pieces that I got today. Yeah, this is a very interesting idea that somebody said. El very, very interesting. Somebody said that. So one idea is by Steven Pressfield in The War of Art, which is like, I write when inspiration strikes. I write, I don't know if it's Steven Pressfield or was he quoting someone else, but basically the idea is that I write when inspiration strikes, and luckily inspiration strikes every day at 9 a.m. Beautiful, very simple, very beautiful, and tells you that, you don't wait for inspiration. You sit down, you start the work, and inspiration comes to you. So he had a very, let's say, regimented, disciplined way of saying it, that no, sit every single day at 9 a.m. and inspiration comes. And then I heard today someone who was talking about a very, very interesting way, which is basically that Muse. So Steven Pressfield also talks about Muse. Muse is, I'm gonna get this wrong, but Muse is basically the daughters of Zeus and and there are like 9 muses, and each one of them are focused on specific art, specific craft, and they give inspiration to the artist. And this person is like, Muse, if you sit down, if you prepare the table, let's say you want to have dinner with the Muse. If you prepare the table, put the tablecloth on, get the food, pour the wine, and if you wait for Muse to join you for dinner, she's not gonna come. But if you prepare the dinner, you do everything, you sit down and you start eating, then the Muse will stomp, she will get angry, but then she will join you. So the idea is that you gotta start. You have to start your thing and let Muse come to you. If you wait for Muse to come, she's never gonna come. So very interesting idea. Elle viendra quand t'assis et commence à manger. Elle sera fâchée et manger avec toi. Tu dois commencer à manger. Tu ne devrais. Yeah, very interesting idea. But anyways, that's the stream. Thank you.